Every man has his heroes, and every life is made up of stories. Heroic Stories is a series from heroicmen.org to find out why some men choose the harder path in life, even when it means losing everything, how they survived, and who they are today. These men seem heroic to us, even if they don't call themselves that. They seem to have an extra strength in their system, extra grit to battle doubt and find purpose. All of these men are seeking divine friendship with God, and they all believe in building up faith, building up men, and building up our future. Sponsored by CatholicSpeakers.com and hosted by Dominic from Heroic Men, get the mindsets, the scars, and the playbooks that these men have earned the hard way. Heroism isn't born, it's made, and these are their stories. Hi, brothers, and welcome back to Heroic Stories. Today, I'm joined by Rob Astorino. Welcome, Rob. It's good to have you with us.
Yeah, good to be with you, Dom. It's a rainy day here, but hopefully it's nice where you are. I see the sun coming in.
I'm not getting any sun. It is rainy. You're a busy guy and you travel a lot. You've seen a lot. You talk a lot about news and politics and so on. So the first question that we get into is a story of heroism that absolutely lights you up. It can be from the news. It can be from personal life. But it's a story that absolutely exemplifies heroism in a way that you like.
So I was giving this some thought. I don't want to say there's one particular moment or one particular hero, let's say. I think the news makes heroes where they shouldn't. And we have a lot of quiet heroism in this world and specifically in this country. Like, you're supposed to have some heroes, right? You're supposed to have, when you're growing up, your heroes are Batman, Robin. When I was growing up, clearly, my heroes were Don Shula, the coach of the Dolphins, my football team, and Bob Greasy, the quarterback. I mean, I exalted them. I loved them. I still love the Dolphins. I go crazy. But, as you get older, you start to realize that the word heroism can take on kind of different meanings, right? And because I'm in politics and I'm in media, it gets so distorted now where we put people up on a pedestal that should never be near a pedestal. And yet that's kind of what society is today. And you just get this quick fame on TikTok or, you're deemed a hero because of something that you never earned. And so I think the word has kind of become watered down where everyone can be a hero for no reason. I mean, I think obviously we have heroes, right? We have people who do heroic acts. We have people who are in the military jumping out of planes and going into really deep, dark, dangerous areas, and we'll maybe never know about them. And they are heroes, clearly, for what they're doing. The cops, obviously, the firefighters who run into the building. I mean, they're all different types of heroes. I think there are quiet heroes that make this country go, that they're never going to get the headline. And yet this country, our society, our church could never function without them. I kind of hope that I'm a hero only to the people that love me and only to the people I care about, and first and foremost, I hope that I'm a hero to my kids, and I think, there's a reason why in the 10 Commandments, it's honor thy mother and father, right? Honor thy father and mother, the fourth commandment. And why it's mentioned throughout the Bible as well, because the bedrock of our society, of our humanity is the family. And that family has become completely under attack right now in America and in this world with this woke nonsense and tearing down masculinity and tearing down the mom and the dad and raising kids. And now it's kind of everything goes. And we're dealing with the consequences of that. So I hope that, my parents are heroes to me. And as you get older, you realize the sacrifices that they've made. And the sacrifices that my wife and I have made for our kids, and they're starting to realize it now. Our youngest is 16. Our middle child, never supposed to say middle child. Our middle child is 20, 21. She'll be in January. She's in college. And our oldest is 22, and he's in the Air Force. So, and then we've got, of course, 2 dogs over there who they can hear. I think they're starting to realize now as they get older that the sacrifices that we make have such an impact on them. And the thing that would bother me the most was when my wife was working or she was out, and I'm watching the kids, and people would say to me, "Oh, you're babysitting." Babysitting? First of all, my wife's not paying me to stay here until she gets home. That would be the definition of a babysitter. I'm being a father. I'm being a parent. And I learned that, it's all about it's about quality and time. And every kid's like, "No, you don't have to come to the game." But I still remember growing up, like, you would always look, are they here? And how much that meant that they were there. And the same thing with my kids. We were always at the games, always at their events, always there, whether they wanted us or not, and how important it was not just to us to see them as they're going up, but we knew how important it was to them. And so, like the vacation stuff, that's fun and all those kind of things, but really being the bedrock, being the parent, being the protector, and for me, being the husband and being the father, that's, I hope, what the heroism is. And, I realize what my dad did for me. He's still, he's still my number one fan. I mean, after all of my TV shows and radio shows, he texts me, calls me, and you take that for granted when you're growing up. But as you age, and unfortunately, my father-in-law just passed away very recently. So we've been going through,
I'm sorry.
losing our first, thank you, no, losing our first parent,
Mhm.
between the four of them, the kids losing their first grandparent. And you realize as you get older, and we're getting older, we're getting towards the top of those rungs there, which, it's slow down. But as you get older, it's the things in life that really matter are right here in this house, in my house, and in family. And all the other stuff, especially when I'm, watching the news or watching social media and all this stuff, all these people who are put up on the pedestal that, whether they deserve it or not, ultimately all comes down to individualism. I mean, individual relationships. Those are the heroes that I hope my kids see in us, and that I definitely see in my parents. So is there like, getting back to your original question, is there a particular hero that I admire? I admire heroism and acts that people have done, but I don't exalt anybody. I don't idolize anybody. I'm way past that.
Sounds like your dad is somebody who's had a real impact on you. There's a bunch of guys out there who either have none or don't have a great story there or a great relationship. Can you maybe tell us a little more about him and why he was um continues to be so
Well,
that relationship, it works and so meaningful.
yeah, look, I think it's one of the saddest things that a child doesn't have a father. And we've been going through a cycle now in this country for too many generations now, probably 3 generations at least, where, whether it's the rise of feminism and, the whole toxic masculinity, which the craziness we've been going through, and the declining attendance at church, and all the bedrock things that made this country great, and that, that is needed to be strong. And we're losing that. And unless we get that back, we are on a slippery slope with no turning back. And I remember when I was Westchester County executive, one of the things that we did, and it taught me a lot, I learned a lot, but it was also what I consider one of my best achievements. Now, you ask taxpayers, they'll say, "Well, you never raise taxes." Okay, that's cool. That's fun. But one of the things that we did, and a Republican, why does a Republican care about this? We tackled the issue of homelessness, but also of fatherless families, taking it from the perspective of, the statistics are so overwhelming that when a child is growing up without an active father in his or her life, and there are a lot of reasons for that: drugs, alcohol, criminal records, poverty. I mean, there's so many issues. But one thing is certainly clear: when a father is not in the life of his or her his child, the outcomes for that child are so diminished. It's staggering. You can predict with, I don't want to say certainty, but with high probability, where that child is going to end up. And it's not good. And so one of the things that we tackled was, okay, we got to figure out the obstacles here. And one thing I kept hearing was the way our system is set up now in the federal government, state government, even local government. where it's based up purely on income. And so there's no incentive for the father to go work, because if he does, he loses some of the, I don't want to even say benefits, some of the things that he needs to get up that ladder in life. And he makes a choice. Well, if I go to work, I lose, I can't afford to get cut off on housing or other assistance that gets me over the hump. And so they choose to stay in this cycle, and they stay out of their kids' lives because they can't afford the, the payments and the support, the child support, and it just spirals. And so we actually figured it out. Okay. And we did it on a test run. How about we sort of like loan forgiveness? If you stay employed, and we can help you with that, but if you stay employed and if you stay in your child's life, after X amount of time, we forgive 25% of what you owe in back payments or something. And to the point where it becomes 100% and they actually are in a fulfilled life again with their kids. Those are things we got to start thinking about. And, I mean, I'm lucky that I lived, and my parents got divorced. My parents got divorced when I think I was 16 or 17. That's not an easy age. No age is easy when your parents go through the divorce, but especially when you're growing up. But my father made sure he lived he lived 5 minutes away. We were always there. And he was at every game again. And so we were fortunate, my sister and I, that we had both parents who were actively with us in childhood, in young adulthood, and making sure that they were there. And that's always going to be with me in my heart. It's always going to be with me as I parent, and hopefully we've instilled that in our kids. And the great part is, it's crazy. My wife's parents are divorced. My parents were divorced, and yet at every holiday, everyone is all together. And so the kids never realize that they were like, when did you guys get divorced? It's like they're always together, and so they see the love, they see the laughter, and they had a normal upbringing despite the setbacks. But
Yeah, despite
so
everything.
yeah.
Yeah, I can see now why you used the word earlier. You said it bothers you when people assume that you're babysitting your own family.
Oh, drives me nuts.
Because this whole topic of fatherhood it sounds like it's a big deal for you out of your own experience, but you've also put a lot of thought into it.
I mean, it's like anyone who is a parent will tell you their life changed dramatically, whether it was kind of unexpected or wanted or however the circumstances. But when that first child is given to you by that doctor or a nurse, and you are holding this little thing that hasn't even been washed off yet, and you realize you are percent, well, 50%, I guess, each parent, but 100% responsible, for this child's upbringing and life, and there's no manual, and it's like, I still remember, oh my God, that drive home with our first kid, put it in the car seat, that drive, I've never driven slower in my life. And it's like, when you type real slow, you always make mistakes. And I'm driving, I'm driving like this, looking at it like, is he okay? You don't know what to do. And then you get home, you don't know what to do, but you figure it out. But the one thing that you know is you love this little human, and that human feels that love back. That little kid feels that love back, even though they can't communicate. And it's the most important thing that we do. I know it's said so often, but it really, it's said for the right reasons. It's true. The most important title you have is mom or dad. I've had plenty of jobs. I've had plenty of great jobs. I have a great job now, at Newsmax, and it's fulfilling. Professionally, it's fulfilling. When you get elected, it's a hard feeling to beat on election night when you win and everyone's cheering for you, and those are moments. And I remember in my first inauguration, January 1st, 2010, and there were like 1,000 people. It was a big deal. It was fun. And I remember one line I said in there about what we were getting into, and like, all unexpected. I have no idea what's ahead of me. And, I got this $2 billion budget all of a sudden that I'm responsible for, and all these other things. And I still remember I said, about the memories that are important along the way, that this will be fun, and this is a part of me. But driving the car with Cheerios on the floor, you know, the that's like, those are the moments,
Yeah.
those are,
Wow.
sit there, and I remember saying that the days are long, but the years are short, and boy, is that true. you just get exhausted as a parent. I remember watching the video at the hospital before you can take the kids home. You got to watch this like shaking baby syndrome. And I remember my wife and I watching this video, like, oh God, who would do that? I mean, that's ridiculous. And then you get home and you have no sleep for a week, and the baby is crying at 3 in the morning, and you're like, get to bed. And then you're like, oh, okay, 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 okay. That's right. That's right. And you have to learn it all on your own. But everything is so every little bit is in my head. It's in pictures, and I never want to forget that. And now you start, as the two are out and one is getting ready to, start thinking about colleges, and then you go through another phase of life where you're kind of empty nest. You realize what your parents went through. As my mom and dad tell me, they still see us as little kids, and it's hard to think, but now I understand. So again, to me, the heroes are the moms and dads who trudge through every day and figure it out, because they're the heroes that make this world go around.
So you just said that you're managing like a $2 billion budget, and it sounds like right around that same time now you have a child. How does somebody who goes from wielding all of that responsibility, trying to make sense of all of these people's lives, and now all of a sudden you've got this little life, why is it a big deal? What changed in you after being equipped to maybe handle all of this? This feels like a big deal. Why is that?
So my son, who's 22, he was born in 2003. Our daughter was born in 2005. So I got elected November of '09. So they were young. And then our other child, our youngest, my wife was pregnant during that whole crazy campaign in 2009. And I'm running around all over the place, getting up very early in the morning and out the door, coming back late at night, exhausted. She's exhausted, pregnant, and two other little kids. And I think, it wasn't really until a couple years ago, actually, that she admitted that there was some anger during that time, some resentment during that time that I'm out and about. But she was terrific. She let me do exactly what I needed to do. We pulled off the upset, and I got elected. But I still remember it was uh, October of '09, and I had this like massive fundraiser scheduled, and she goes into labor. And so she's at the hospital. I go to the hospital, obviously, and I have the hospital band on, and it was October 8th, and she gives birth. So our daughter was born at like 4 in the afternoon. This event was scheduled at like 7 o'clock,
Oh,
and I'm
wow.
like, I'm canceling things. She's like, no, I'm exhausted. Please, just the nurse is gonna take the baby. Just go do this thing. And so I go, and I walk into this event. And I said, we just had a baby, and it was
Had
like,
you slept that night? I'm assuming you were
oh
probably
no,
up
it
all
was
night.
horrible. No, it was crazy. And everyone's like, why are you here? And it kinda hit me like, "Yo, why am I here?" Seriously, I mean, this is, like, one of the greatest moments of my life. Why, like, the checks were already collected. Why am I here? Who's gonna care if that I mean, I had the greatest excuse in the world with proof. I had an 8-pound proof. So, I we get during this crazy time, and then I still remember, we win the election. My baby's, like, 3 weeks old. We're on, um election night, and then getting sworn in that day where I made that speech. A lot of it was my kids were on my mind, like, how am I gonna deal with both of these things happening at once? But also a reminder to everyone else, like, this might be important, like running a government, but it ain't more important than, that little baby who's 3 months old right now, and my little kids running around, 5-year-old and whatever. And I think that was important as an elected official too, to kinda tell people, like, "Stop." I know politics is consuming, I know politics is important, it matters, but by God, at the end of the day, when this stuff freaking ends, you're home, and that's what matters more than anything. And so it's like religion, God, my family, that's always been, and hopefully it's always been right at the center, and everything is around it. I remember it's funny because he was my scheduler at the time, and he was always so focused. He didn't have children, he wasn't married or anything at that point, and he would always like I would give him all the kids' schedules, like, all right, here's my son's lacrosse schedule or wrestling, whatever, and plop it into the schedule and work around it. I'm not doing anything. I'm going to the games. And he couldn't figure it out. He goes, well, you already went to a game this year. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to all of them and you can figure out the schedule. And he never understood because he wasn't a parent. And until recently, he got married and had kids about 3 years ago. And I joke with him all the time now. I'm like, do you want me to handle your schedule? Do you want me to, make sure I fill up your schedule so you can't be here to take the kids to the doctor? And he starts laughing. He goes, oh my God, I wish I knew then. I would have been, I would have been a little more understanding. But that's life. You go through it.
I got a bunch of questions trying to pick the right one here. Something you said earlier about keeping God at the center of everything. How do you do that as someone with a family working, you're busy? What are your practices for staying sane, maintaining your spirituality, habits, defaults? What do you do to keep it working?
Well, fortunately, my parents, they made sure my sister and I went to church when we were growing up. And I was joking with my kids recently. I said, um, they were home the other day, and so we went to mass. And I said, you know what would always happen after when we were growing up? We would always go after mass. We would always go to the bakery, and we can pick out a donut or whatever, and we would go home. And not that that was a reward, but it was part of the routine. And
Mhm.
we knew going to church, as a kid, you're like, oh my God, what's that? No. But at least you got the bakery afterwards. And it was
Right.
part of it. And so we went to the diner after mass. And to me, it's always been, God, Jesus, the Catholic Church has always been part of my life routine. It was the way I was raised. It was the way my wife decided to raise our kids, obviously. I could say, look, I wish I was more attentive on more of the spiritual things at times with the kids. One of my jobs, and it was like how I don't know how I got it, but it just came to me. I actually left. I was at ESPN Radio, which I had helped start in New York, and I left there at the end of 2005 to run a campaign that I lost. So I was out of work. And I remember getting an email from a friend of mine who I went to Fordham with, and he's like, "Hey, are you still Catholic?" I'm like, "Yeah, why?" He's like, they're starting the Catholic channel on Sirius XM satellite radio, and it's between the archdiocese of New York and Sirius, and they need somebody to run it, to launch it, and to run it. And I thought you'd be, good for something like this. And I was like, I mean, I go to church, but the idea of like Catholic radio seemed boring to me. But like, let me go. I want to go in and meet people at Sirius anyway. And meet Cardinal Dolan, Cardinal Egan at the time, and they were asking me questions like, if you could start a Catholic channel on radio, how would you do it? And I'm thinking to myself, this is either going to go really bad or it's going to go really good. And I'm like,
Yeah.
look, it's just got to be contemporary. It's got to be like, you got to reach people like me who may not go to church each week because I'm, dealing with 3 kids and runny noses and we're all over the place. But I want to go to church, but a zillion things. So I went through the whole thing and they said, that's kind of what we were thinking. And they hired me and it was one of the greatest jobs I've had. I thoroughly loved it. I really did. And I got to go around the country interviewing cardinals and bishops. I went to the Vatican a bunch of times, met Pope Benedict. It was just a great, great thing. And it was just part of my spirituality. And, again, when you're young, I remember I would go to church and I still do this. My favorite time is to be during the day at an empty church. And no matter where I go, like when I'm traveling, I always either a local church or the cathedral. I love to go during the day where it's just quiet. There's, as you know, the smells and bells of the Catholic Church are the best, right? And you go in there and just you smell the candle, you hear the silence, you see the crucifix, and you just have a chance to be in the moment, nothing else. And you're just sitting there talking to God, just being you and just, unburdening yourself or just having that time. And I remember when I was young, it would be like, oh, please let the Miami Dolphins win tonight. Those kind of silly things. Please let me win an election or let somebody win. It's like Jesus ain't up there on Sundays wearing aqua and orange, and he ain't a Republican or Democrat. But you go through those phases of life. And now, of course, I'm praying, please get my son home safely. Please pray for, the things that really matter. And hopefully we've instilled that on our kids. My daughter just started going back to church. She went to college. And, when you go to college, it's the last thing you're thinking. But she started, and we were so surprised and thankful. We went up to see her and we went to mass with her. She came home. She wanted to go to mass. My son's back at church, he's in the Air Force, but in Arkansas. And that to us is like, we did something right. And hopefully they stick with that, because that's one of those fallback things. I always felt no matter how crappy things would get, and trust me, when you're in politics or the public life, things can get pretty crappy. You get hit from all areas, you can never win, and all this stuff, a lot of pressure. But I would always be able to go to that church in the middle of the day
Mhm.
and nothing else mattered. That was like my shield. I could just be there and not worry and just kind of let everything out. And I hope that they've seen that in us, and they understand that that needs to be their bedrock, their times where they can fall back, and hopefully, and so we got smiles on our face when we know that they're back at church.
It's beautiful. Well, we got a last question then for you for this conversation. We have a lot of men with a lot grayer hair than I have
Cool.
who listen in on this podcast, grandfathers and so on, dads. You mentioned that your empty nesting is on the
Getting
horizon
there.
or is starting. Are you
Yeah,
getting there?
getting there, about 2 years away. Well, I mean, I guess they always come back, but
Right.
she'll
But
be
it's very
out at
different now. Yeah.
college, so yeah, we will be empty nest for a while, sure.
Yeah. How are you handling this transition? And here's where I'm going, or where I'm interested in asking the sense of being a father, or
Mhm,
the charism or the gift of fathering, of not just having kids but also bringing life to other people. And that's specifically something that we focus on at Heroic Men, the sense that, as you and I were chatting before we hit record, that the idea or the sense of desiring heroism, that's something that's innate to masculinity, to being a man.
mhm.
And it may not be pedestaled and dramatic, as you pointed out as we started. Sometimes it's about being a hero to somebody, and they might give you that accolade and you might never admit it, and they go, no, you were a hero to me because of what you did. So I'm curious for you, as you're now, things are changing again. How are you looking at what changes are happening for you, and how are you making sense of them? Because you never stop this sense of, I would imagine, as I'm the kid in the room here, this sense of fathering and continuing to bring life and to pour into other people to build them up.
So, I mentioned earlier that my father-in-law passed away last week, so we were all together, obviously, for this, and, I think it's hard for a kid to see his or her parents cry. That's vulnerable, and they saw us cry a lot over the last couple of days, and I think the nice part was after the funeral and everyone was home, it was just the 5 of us again, and, we had breakfast together, we watched a movie together, and as my wife said to me, she goes, "It's like all the babies are under the roof again." And it's a nice feeling because it doesn't happen much, and
Mhm.
nor will it going forward. Everything the dynamic changes, right? They get married, so now the in-laws, are here, um, and everything moves, and then grandchildren. So it's like the root, the 5 were together, and you wonder how many more times you're gonna have of that. And as a parent, you always want that to be the case, even though the family expands and you're happy for them, right? So I don't know what the next phase is gonna be like. I mean, we got 2 little dogs, one's 10, one's 5, so they keep us busy and they keep us, yeah, they show us the love, but I don't know. I don't know what it's gonna be like. I mean, professionally, as long as I'm still able to do stuff and work, I'll feel some fulfillment, but I think once, you know, our 16-year-old in 2 years when she's out, I don't know what that phase is gonna be like. My wife loves the phase she's in. She says this all the time. She goes, "I love where we're at. I wouldn't wanna go backwards. I enjoyed it, even though it was difficult, but we've done that. We did our responsibility. We loved them, and at some point, it turns back to us, to our turn to go travel, which we love to do, and move to a second phase." She's like, "I can't wait till I retire." I'm like, "Oh my god, I never wanna retire." And those are things we gotta figure out because it's
Mhm.
gonna be just my wife and I again, the circle of life, right? We started
Mhm.
together and And then things changed when we added kids, and now when the kids are out, it's back to just us. So I don't know. I don't know what that phase is going to be like. I honestly don't know. I think it's going to be a little bit of a difficult transition when not that it's just because it's just us, just because things will alter probably dramatically. I mean, the kids, we can't tell them go to your room. They're adults, and when to come home, they're going to come home when they can or when they will, and they're starting out. We'll help them as much as we can. But at this point, it's advice, and they take it or they leave it, and you watch them make the mistakes. You try to shield them, but they're going to do what they're going to do, and that's how it's supposed to be. Just like our parents looked at us, say, "You moron, what are you doing?" But that's life. So I don't know the answer to that. I am getting some gray hairs now, so I don't know. It'll be an interesting phase.
Thank you. Last question is actually,
Yeah.
I want to go all the way back to the beginning. Something you said that interested me, I've been chewing on, which was you said that the people who inspire you most are the people who have lives of quiet heroism. And then you called out a lot of moms and dads out there who have really inspired you. And I'm curious, is there a story there that does come to your mind? Somebody who did do something that exemplifies that?
Well, there are plenty. There are plenty of people who, the moms or the dads who were the CYO coaches. And I was one of them, and I can't tell you how much I enjoyed every moment of coaching my kids. My 3 kids in CYO basketball. I wouldn't give that up for a second. I loved putting that whistle on, going to practice, and spending time with them, and on the final year with my last child winning the championship. I mean, that was just like, they're like, okay, why are they so excited? We're in 8th grade. And me and the other coach were just like almost in tears how excited we were just because we had that moment with our kids. But there were so many other parents who I just saw were so dedicated to their kids, who showed up at all the games, who, were working in the cafeteria, to make sure or security at the CYO games or at the football game, whatever. These are the moms and dads who just put in a heck of a lot of effort to make sure that they were actively involved in their kids. And they may never get a thanks for coming to the game, Dad, or, I'm glad you were there. But boy, we know it's in them, and we know how important it is. So I would just say, again, not a specific moment. It's just the everyday minutia or important little steps that we as parents have to take. And every time I see that, when I see a mom with a shopping cart with a screaming kid, we just sound like, can I help you in any way? We've been there, but it gets better. You say that. And I think that's really the heroism that makes the most impact on me. Just the little things that nobody gets thank yous for.
Yeah. Yeah. Closing words of encouragement to the men listening to this episode. What would you like to leave them with?
I hope you know how important you are in society, and how important you are to the church, and how important you are, especially in the lives of your wife and your children. Be the unsung hero. You may not get the accolades, you may not get the pat on the back or even the thank yous, but it all adds up. It's like making deposits in a bank, and when you're done, that retirement IRA emotion and gratitude is going to be there, and you're going to be lucky that you made that effort. And the interest is going to be, I did well. My kids are okay. They're on their own. Hopefully they're healthy. Some of those things obviously are out of our control, but they're on the right path. And but the joke when we were growing up was, the moms would always take care of the kids, and the dad's job was to make sure the kids stayed alive until mom got home. But we're more than that. And being a dad, being a man in this day and age, don't allow us to be devalued or to say we don't matter. We matter. We are so important to the development of kids and to the stability of families and to society. Take it seriously, and be as goofy as you want, but know how important it is.
Thanks for joining us. If this story connected with you, send it to someone. And if you want to chat with us about anything that we've said, send us a message at heroicmen.org/stories. Our partner at CatholicSpeakers.com has built the easiest way to book powerful Catholic speakers for your men's event. They are the #1 resource worldwide for event organizers and Catholic speakers. Book easily, confidently, and ask for several grants to support ministry to men. Visit heroicmen.org/speakers today. Come and share your journey in the Heroic Brotherhood, our online community for Catholic men like you. Get the app with the best Catholic media for men, including Heroic Men's original series, Be a Man. It's all free because an alliance of donors already paid it forward for you. Stand with us. Let's build the future of Catholic men. Will you pay it forward? $5 a month pays it forward for 5